You ever get that feeling like you've learned tons of English words, but something's still missing? You're not alone. Today, we're diving into one of the trickiest parts of English, phrasal verbs. And by the end of this, you're going to have the tools to really get a handle on them.
I mean, you hear them all the time, right? We've run out of milk, or let's look into that problem. It almost feels like a secret code hiding right there in plain sight. But don't you worry, we are about to crack that code together.
So, what even is a phrasal verb? Well, it's actually way simpler than you might think. Just take a basic verb, something like give, and add a little word, a particle, like up. Suddenly, give up means to quit. It's this simple formula, verb plus particle, that creates all this amazing richness, and yeah, sometimes a little confusion in English.
All right, so let's start by cracking this code. First up, why do these things even matter so much? Once you see how incredibly common they are, you'll really want to get them down. And this is the really important part. Phrasal verbs are not just some casual slang. Nope, they are everywhere. You'll hear them in casual chats, you'll see them in formal business emails, and you'll even find them in academic papers. Honestly, mastering them is your ticket to sounding truly fluent. Okay, ready to break this down? It's actually pretty organized. Phrasal verbs fall into three main types. Let's get into them. Now, don't get hung up on the grammar terms here. The idea is super simple. Some phrasal verbs, like the plain took off, are complete on their own. They don't need an object to make sense. The others do need an object. And really the only question is where that object goes. Understanding this is the whole key to using them correctly. Okay, so this is where it gets kind of cool. For some of these verbs, you actually get a choice. She turned off the light and she turned the light off mean the exact same thing, and they are both 100% correct. This flexibility is a huge part of English, and knowing you have that choice makes speaking feel so much more natural.
But then you've got the other kind, where the rule is super strict. The object has to come after the particle. You have to say, we're looking after the children. Saying we're looking the children after, well, that's a really common mistake. So this is a great distinction to remember.
Okay, so now that we've got the rules down, let's go see these phrasal verbs out in the wild. You might be surprised where they pop up. You know, if you thought phrasal verbs were just for casual chats, think again. In really formal settings, scientists will carry out research, and new policies can bring about major change. These are absolutely essential for professional communication. And of course, this is where you hear them all the time. They're really the lifeblood of everyday conversation. You don't usually say, I unexpectedly discovered an old photograph. Nah, you say, I came across an old photo. It just sounds more natural, right? All right, let's throw a little curveball in here. What happens when the exact same phrasal verb means two totally different things? It all boils down to one thing: context. Let's take a look. A plane can take off from a runway, right? But someone's career can also take off and become successful. You can bring up a question in a meeting, or you can bring up a child. The context is your best friend here. It tells you everything you need to know. Okay, this brings up a great question. When do you use a phrasal verb, and when should you maybe choose a more formal-sounding word? Let's get into the nuances. Here's a general rule of thumb. When you're doing more formal or academic writing, sticking to a single-word verb often just sounds a bit more polished and sophisticated. It's a simple trick to elevate your writing. And here are some fantastic examples of this in action. Instead of saying look into, you could write investigate. Instead of come up with, you could use create or devise. See? These little swaps can make a huge impact in your formal writing. All right, we've covered the what, the why, and the how. So now let's talk about turning all this knowledge into an actual skill. Here's your game plan for fluency. It really boils down to a simple three-step process. First, just start noticing them when you're reading or listening. Second, when you find a new one, learn its pattern. Is it separable or not? And finally, and this is the most important part, you've got to use it. Just try using one new phrasal verb in a sentence today. I know it can seem like a small detail in a huge language, but trust me, getting a handle on these phrases is a massive step towards sounding natural and confident when you speak English. So there you have it. You've got the tools now to really start unlocking this part of English. My question for you is, what new idea will you come up with today?